You might think of the 1960s or the Woodstock Festival when we talk about psychedelics. But in recent years, these substances made their way back into public conversation because of their immense potential in curing some of the world's most challenging mental health disorders.
It's like electrocuting your brain.
In a way, an expanded state of consciousness.
Psychedelic healthcare is a very exciting area because it's really this apex of drugs, clinics, and experiential treatments.
According to a market research report, the psychedelic therapy market was valued at $3.6 billion in 2021. That figure is expected to more than double by 2028 as interest from the medical community and investors grow. But it's also possible that the industry will face some of the regulatory hurdles and boom and bust cycles the legal cannabis market has seen. A team of scientists from Imperial University scanned the brains of volunteers while the patients are under the influence of these drugs. Dr. David Erizzo is the clinical director of the university's Center for Psychedelic Research.
We have different tools. We have MRI, magnetic imaging. We have more molecular. Part of what we have been doing at Imperial is doing some of the first work with these techniques during a psychedelic experience.
In this room, the Imperial team administered their treatments. In 2021, they began a new trial comparing psilocybin therapy with a conventional antidepressant drug in patients with depression. Psilocybin is the active ingredient in so-called magic mushrooms.
One is a profound single administration of a drug that puts you in a psychedelic space, so in an altered state of consciousness, expanded state. The control or comparison was a daily administration of a conventional antidepressant for 6 weeks.
And what did the research tell you? What was the finding?
Overall, the study favored, in this study, the psilocybin condition. So the people who were in that side of the study, in that arm, they did better on most of the outcomes.
Around 1 in 8 people worldwide, or 1 billion people, suffer from a mental health disorder. In addition to the hardship experienced by patients, this also has a cost that can be measured. The OECD estimates that the economic burden of mental illness can be around 4% of a country's GDP. Global sales of antidepressant drugs are expected to exceed $20 billion by 2030. Investors are betting that psychedelic therapies have the potential to grab a share of that enormous market. Clara Burtenshaw is a partner at Neo Kuma Ventures, the largest European venture capital fund investing in psychedelic companies such as Atai Life Sciences and Compass Pathways.
The more I researched into it, the more I saw that there was this really interesting opportunity to create a better class of drug to treat people, and really a breakthrough in psychiatric drug development research, something we really haven't seen in the last 50 years.
The reason why it's so hyped is that the results look very strong and good, even for a range of conditions, combined with the fact that not that much has happened in conventional pharma development in mental health for decades.
Here in the United Kingdom, poor mental health costs almost £120 billion annually. This is around 5% of the country's economic output. 72% of the cost is due to lost productivity of people living with mental health conditions and their personal caregivers. Pandora Morris is a former lawyer and a mental health activist who has tried numerous treatments to ease her debilitating OCD. Her podcast, Hurt to Healing, aims to raise awareness on mental health issues.
I was very lucky I could afford to go and have private treatment. There are so many people out there who don't have those resources, and that's my mission, is to try and support those people.
44% of mental health service providers in England reported being unable to meet current demands for inpatient services. This rises to 81% for services targeting young people. After struggling to recover with conventional methods in the UK, Pandora decided to travel abroad to a psychedelic retreat where she was given 4 milligrams of psilocybin.
You're almost like grieving what you haven't processed emotionally. And then that trauma and the tears wore off. And then I went into your typical sort of psychedelic state, which was, extraordinary, like this kaleidoscopic kind of display of fireworks and fields and being on the ocean. And it's not a cure, but it's certainly something that just helps with the momentum.
Due to their mind-bending qualities, substances like psilocybin, ketamine, LSD and MDMA remain illegal in most parts of the world. But after decades of demonization, these drugs have undergone a public image shift. There are countless articles, documentaries, TED Talks, and some very high-profile advocates. But it's not all smooth sailing for this emerging industry. Public interest is there. The science took off. There are some very promising results from various studies, but stocks seem to be tumbling. Why do you think that is?
A large part of the problem is that there was this huge rush to list very early on Canadian stock exchanges. In a very benign equities market, companies now waiting to hit those clinical inflection points. It's not a quick win, it's not a quick return. But for the psychedelic healthcare investor, now is a very good time because you've got some companies with excellent assets trading at very depressed values.
Most psychedelic healthcare companies use similar substances, so it's unclear how they are going to differentiate their treatments and establish market share. As a result, there is a fierce race to own patents. Some of the biggest players in the market have been assertive with their applications to gain an advantage over their competitors. The problem? People have been using these substances for centuries.
The field of psychedelic medicine is at its early stages. It's an emerging field, and a lot of the work being done is being done at universities and at small companies. And the presence of overly broad granted patents threatens that development.
David Casimir is a patent attorney and the founder of Porta Sofia, an online database aiming to track and assist with blocking these so-called bad patents.
The goal of this is essentially to protect the public domain, to ensure that those things that have already been done historically can continue to be done without interference of lawsuits.
One case which attracted David's attention saw a mental health care company attempt to patent the use of psilocybin to treat depression.
So when you look at their patent applications, they purport to have invented a new chemical form of the drug psilocybin. But their patent applications were filed initially much more broadly. They were essentially covering all forms of psilocybin.
Following David's objection, the company narrowed their US patent claims, but backers of the larger players in the space say there is a need for intellectual property they invest in to be protected.
The for-profit sector would not put the millions required into developing those drugs unless there was a way to recoup that with some profit. So patents enable them to do that. People who are recreationally, medicinally taking mushrooms in a field, no one's going to go after that.
It will require industry to come in and take over some of the development, and hopefully they will listen to a lot of the wisdom, not just from academia, but also from cultures where people have a lot of wisdom about these treatment models.
If the science works, I'm confident that we'll see products on the market. If these drugs work, it will be world changing. And so everyone who's in the field, I would encourage to be very diligent and do what they can to help.